and welcome to Inside View. I'm your host, Joel Metzger. Joining me in the show today is District 3 Supervisor Michael Oliveira. So glad to have you on the show.
Joel, it's good to be back.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're all so glad that you are just looking amazing. You look sharp, you look great, and I know some people were worried about you, but just tell the folks, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Joel.
Awesome.
It was a little touch and go there for a while. I'm probably more healthy than I've been in about 25, 30 years. I dropped some weight and trying to get some of that back on, but health-wise, I'm 150% and raring to go.
Tell you what, I'm so glad to hear that. It's really, really good to see you come through and just be looking so good. So glad you're okay. So we have so many issues that we want to touch on today, but before we get into some of those, I just wanted to ask you, how has it been being a supervisor so far? You know, what's the experience been like? What's the ride been like so far?
Well, there's an old saying. It's like an E-ride at Disneyland. I'm kind of aging myself. I had an idea and a concept of what it was like, especially after getting elected. I was totally off base. Totally off base. I'm very happy I had the opportunity to be a part of this. I'm happy to be part of the government in the county. I'm happy to be part of our community. And it's exactly what I thought it was to an extent, but far more reaching. And it's been an exciting year so far. Exciting year.
You know, I don't think a lot of people realize how much work goes into being a supervisor. If they could see the board packets that you have to take home and look through and be familiar with, I think their jaws would probably drop. I mean, it's a staggering amount of reading, isn't it?
Boy, it is exceptionally a staggering amount. Fortunately, we're into the computer age where we can do a lot of that electronically. Mm-hmm. To carry around actually hard copies of all the material we have to review before a board meeting, we need a truck. But more importantly, not only is the research and education process, it's a contact in the county in dealing with the different issues and the citizens, mm-hmm. the businesses, the departments. A lot of interaction goes on. You have to listen to what people are saying with you. I have a habit of talking with people instead of talking to or people talking to me. I like that concept of talking and understanding and realizing positions people are coming from. Mm-hmm. It's very important. The perception is important, but listen to what they say.
Absolutely. So you definitely have had a fun experience, not exactly what you thought it would be. Do you feel like you kind of understand the process and you have your feet on the ground and you're totally up to speed on all it takes to be a supervisor at this point?
You'll never be up to speed on how to be a supervisor. I've got a working good knowledge of it. I'm always learning. Every board meeting, every issue you're learning something new. This first year has been quite involved with we had a Butte fire. Mm-hmm. We've got some other issues. We've got our general plan that we're really working hard, and it's coming along very well. And then the death of our sheriff in office, Gary Kuntz. Devastating. I'm very proud of the fact that the sheriff's department and this county continued on despite that loss suddenly and unexpected.
And for those who don't know, you were very involved with the sheriff's office for quite some time. Could you give us that history?
Yeah, I was actually a sheriff's deputy up here, an extra hire. I worked in the courts as a bailiff. I was the only extra hire that was cleared and certified to work the street. And that worked into a resident position as a resident deputy in the Arnold area in District 3. Mm-hmm. The interaction I had with the community up there was a big reason that I made up my mind to run for supervisor.
Okay.
So I'm very proud of that experience and very proud of my time with the Sheriff's Department here in Calaveras County.
Did you know Kuntz pretty well?
I did know Sheriff Kuntz very well.
Okay.
Not only was my sheriff, he was my friend. We were close.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time with him when I used to work at the newspaper, and he always treated me with nothing but kindness and always went out of his way to do whatever he could to help. So I miss him dearly as well. So tell me this. I want people to understand your district. So First of all, the boundaries. Generally, where do you find District 3 in Calaveras County? Where does it stretch?
Well, if you jumped in the car and took up leaving Angels Camp on Highway 4, as you come out of the bypass area, you pop into Vallecillos, which is the first small community you come to. Excuse me. Well, on the right side of Vallecillos is District 3. On the left side of Vallecillos, on Highway 4, is still part of Supervisor Ponte's district.
Okay.
So there's kind of a jagged dividing line there. But right around, just west of Douglas Flats, on the Highway 4 corridor, that's all District 3, all the way to the Alpine County line, just before Bear Valley.
So that whole upper Highway 4 corridor, that's all you?
That's all, or starting right there at Douglas Flats, and Vallecito on the other side of Highway 4, all the way up through Murphy's, up through Hathaway Pines, Avery, Arnold, Dorrington, all the way up to Sky High, all the way up to County Line.
So what's special about your district?
Trees, forest, the people, our transient population that comes up and visits us, Murphy area. Now we're starting to see that in Arnold and Dorrington. That's all special. We're seeing businesses come back. We're seeing new businesses opening up. Not as fast as I'd like to sometimes, but this last winter season and during the Christmas holidays, we just enjoyed a tremendous amount of people coming up there, almost to the point of congesting our highways and snow play areas. But it was good to see the folks coming back to District 3 in Calaveras County.
What are the main economic drivers in District 3?
At this point, tourism. We're starting to get some activity back in our national forests. I've been very heavily engaged with the folks at the U.S. Forest Service, talking about our off-highway vehicle programs, both snow and during the spring and the summertime. Actually engaged with the folks, the associations. The Forest Service has included us in meetings on determining what they're going to do with those lands. It's one of the situations we want to do is open our forests back up, but do it in a reasonable manner. We don't want to waste what we have. One of the things I've been very successful in is listening to folks from all facets of that particular project. Environmental concerns, our off-highway motorized vehicles, our runners, our bicyclists, of course, our Forest Service people. They all play an important part.
And I'll say right outside of Arnold, the Arnold Rim Trail is an incredible resource that I think more people should know about to get out and really experience the outdoor hiking and biking and all that has to offer.
Oh, it's a great recreation area. Ironically, during the Butte Fire, part of Cal Fire's fire prevention plan or fighting the fire, it actually involved taking and cutting a major fire break right alongside the Arnold Rim Trail. I spent time in the EOC Center with Supervisor Edson and was able to be part of that operation for about 8 days straight. And I know when the call came out to Cal Fire that they needed to bring that fire break into play because the fire was reaching Freycott City, and if it went up the old Darby fire route, we would probably lose Avery and Arnold, and depending on the winds. They established that fire break with the help of SPI, who brought in 9 dozers immediately on about 2 hours' notice and started that fire break. Cal Fire brought in another 3 dozers, and it was tremendous, great fire break. Was done quickly. Fortunately, we didn't have the fire line get into that area, but now we have a fire break that's established. I mention that because part of the Arnold Rim Trail was actually part of that fire break. We didn't have time, and part of that trail area was damaged. I was able to contact, through the folks at the Arnold Rim Trail Committee, they contacted me, advised me of that. I was on Cal Fire right away, talked to the Forest Service, and got a commitment that that will be cleaned up when they clean up the fire break after the fire, which has been done. Great. So we're happy to see that happen. Another sign of cooperating together as a community and with the different agencies. I think that's something that the Calaveras County is starting to experience.
No, absolutely. And I know that you were very involved with responding to the Butte Fire, and Cliff kind of took the lead as board president on that. But just looking back on this county enduring such a terrible tragedy and this horrific fire, what do you take away from the Butte Fire?
We weren't prepared for it. We thought we were. We weren't prepared for it. And we had firsthand experience seeing how all the agencies involved weren't able to really communicate effectively due to their own procedures. And we didn't have time to say, stop, what are we doing wrong? And those are the things we're working on right now. Most of the folks I speak with in the community, and especially in my district, because we were very, very fortunate in District 3. We evacuated. We didn't suffer any loss that District 2 and District 4 and Supervisor Wright's district did, Mountain Ranch area. We were able to help in supporting the firefighting efforts any way we could. In addition, supporting the rebuilding, repopulation process. Our folks were very, very involved in getting some resources to the folks that are taking care of our citizens that don't have places to rest now, to live. Mm-hmm. And it's a constant ongoing battle. Our realtor associations, what a fantastic job they've done in raising funds to support those activities. In addition, the Calaveras Foundation organization, very instrumental in making stuff happen. It's a community effort. We didn't get burned out, but we were just as much responsible for this rebuilding as everybody else. And they took a very active part. I'm very proud of District 3, and I'm very proud of Calaveras County.
Looking forward, the conversations that need to be had to get all these organizations communicating the way they need to. If this does happen again, are you confident that the response will be much more coordinated and that communication lines will be open?
We are working on that as we speak. We started working on that. The county has brought in the new system of Code Red. One of the problems that we had was we couldn't get the information disseminated to the public quick enough. And it was because of procedures that CAL FIRE had, interfacing with Calaveras, interfacing with our Emergency Operating Center, interfacing with the press, the media, and those avenues that we take for granted. Cell phones, wired phones. Those were all gone. We had no cell service. We had no wire phone service. People can't count on a computer. We didn't have power. So how do you communicate? We talked to AM, FM radio stations, which we don't have a lot of, but thank God we had a good AM station. That's one of the issues that we're working on right now. I belong to a committee called the Highway 4 Water Committee, and that's the utilities up along the Highway 4 corridor. And we actually discussed this. And some of the suggestions they brought, they said, well, why don't you use our facilities and put on transmitters or some type of radio communication that is already established as far as the infrastructure. All we got to do is hang an antenna or a repeater on it. And that's something we never thought of.
Okay.
You know, CCW, you're part of that.
There we go. Yeah. There we go.
So
a lot of lessons learned, better response in the future. But one thing that hasn't gone away is the condition of the forests. And in fact, they're worsening. We see the bark beetles destroying thousands, if not millions, of trees up and down the Sierra. What can be done to combat the bark beetles? And then an even larger problem is these overgrown thick forests that burn in catastrophic manner.
We are really engaged in that situation. Joel, we have a very dangerous situation here in Calaveras County and in Northern California. So dangerous that the governor has declared a state of emergency in the tree mortality area. He's developed a task force out of Sacramento. I am a member, I'm the representative from Calaveras County on that task force, along with Supervisor Wright. He just joined the task force because our two districts were the most involved in the bark beetle problem and our dead trees. Now, I think the seriousness of the problem has not been realized yet by the public. We're looking at probably 70% dead tree problems in Northern California. 70%. 7 out of every 10 trees are probably going to be destroyed in the next 5 years, or has been destroyed. We are trying to find a way to make this stop. We have a lot of trees down. We have a lot of trees that are standing, and once they're dead, they're like torches. So if we experience another fire, we're going to have canopy fire problems. That's how come we have to get these trees down. We got to get replanting processes in place and start rejuvenating our forest. But we haven't stopped the problem. The drought actually attributed this problem with the bark beetle problem. It's a very serious thing we have to pay attention to.
So one positive thing is we're finally getting a normal or above normal year for snow and rain. So that will start to get the water back to those trees. But is it true that they don't just recover after 1 year after they've been weakened by 4 years of drought? They need multiple years of good rain to build their defenses back up to these bugs?
By all means. By all means. This is a cyclic process. This has happened before. Maybe not in our lifetime. But it's more serious now because of the timing of the infestation of the bark beetle with the 4-year drought. And to be quite honest, the projected drought is going to last. We are looking at what we're seeing right now as a big plus, a boom to this problem. Hopefully it'll continue.
I want to switch subjects over to marijuana.
Okay.
This county has seen a lot of people growing marijuana for collectives, especially kind of up in the upper areas of our county, kind of the eastern side. And some people say it's been an economic boom for the local businesses who these people frequent, and then also a livelihood for many people. There have also been folks who said that it's a negative thing and it increases the crime rate. We even had some people murdered who, according to their sheriff's report, were trying to steal marijuana, and then the owner of that land or the person who was growing the garden took issue with that. All different sides to this issue. But as a supervisor, you actually have to make a decision about the future of marijuana in this county and how it's going to be handled. So bring us up to date on that effort.
Well, you're absolutely right. And the facts you just mentioned are absolutely accurate. Both those folks are proponents of marijuana and cultivation, and those folks that are against it. Basically, in a nutshell, we were under state-mandated guidelines and regulations to make a first decision of whether or not we're going to allow marijuana cultivation in this county or ban it totally. And that guideline, or actually that deadline, was March 1st. Our staff and our county council have been researching this along with our public safety folks, and we couldn't find a happy medium under those guidelines. So we didn't even know if we were going to have an ordinance ban it all or develop an ordinance that everybody could live with. That decision has kind of been moved out of our hands now. On the November ballot on 2016, I have actually verified that there is going to be a marijuana initiative on that ballot for use other than medical marijuana. The people of the state of California are going to vote whether they want to legalize marijuana use for pleasure. We have to keep that in mind. Just recently, Measure 26, AB 21 was initiated in both the House and the Senate of the state here. And what that did was to correct some previous errors made by previous bills that drove the state to develop their marijuana policy for cultivation and transportation and manufacturing. Just this afternoon at 3 o'clock, I received information that the governor, after passing both houses, the bill was placed on his desk for signing, was signed today. That's huge for us. What happens now is it takes us from under the gun of the deadline, March 21st. And this is like a 400-page project that the board had to make a decision on in that short time. And fortunately, the board decided we're not going to make a decision. There's just too wide open, too many areas that need to be re-looked at both by the public and by the board. So we've developed a schedule through County Council and to our folks out here that we're coming back on the 16th of February for a special board meeting with only one item on the agenda, and that is the marijuana cultivation ordinance. I have been in constant contact, as well as every other supervisor, with their constituents, with groups, listening to them, trying to educate ourselves on what's happening. And I think we have the opportunity to come up with a very sound way to determine this ordinance, where everybody is going to be benefited by it and won't be harmed by it. But it's going to be a very strict ordinance. It's going to have to involve not only wisdom in creating the ordinance for fairness for all people, it's going to involve the enforcement of that ordinance and how we're going to enforce it. But you're right. You mentioned a couple of facts about businesses benefiting from this. Absolutely true. I have been in contact with no less than 3 or 4 businesses in my particular district that say we have never experienced what this issue is bringing to us, construction only. I have one contractor that said, I have a $65,000 contract in anticipation rewiring and replumbing a warehouse or an indoor grow area. And this is what the outside influence is doing. I've talked to people that supply materials for the cultivation of marijuana and for the building materials for remodeling. And it's just, that's where we're getting our economic boost right now. And once we develop an ordinance and we establish fees, we're going to see some economic benefit of that. But with that comes expenses too. It has to be strictly enforced. Right. And this not only comes from law enforcement or public safety, it comes from the folks, the growers associations that have stepped up to the plate and attended the board meetings and said, "This, we want to be legal. We want to be part of a good, stable, legal operation." So I see a joint effort. And now we're seeing folks that were opposed to it 6 months ago realizing that we need to have something done, but let's do it right. And that's what we want to do. That's what I want to do as a supervisor.
So the direction is not to ban outdoor or indoor marijuana cultivation. It's to find a balance to where a reasonable amount of marijuana could be grown in a way that could be regulated and monitored, and the county also would collect some sort of fees as part of that?
That's exactly what one of the goals are. Like I said, I've spoken to people that were strictly against the use of marijuana in any shape, fashion, or form. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing that education process that we've seen the last, if you will, 10 months. Their education is working because they are seeing the other position. Not necessarily agreeing with it, but they realize the position. Mm-hmm. And that makes, once you get folks to realize positions and why those things are so important, you get them talking. And if you can get them talking, you can get them agreeing to things. Not everything, but at least there's common ground there, and they're seeing things from a different perspective.
Got it. Okay, well, we'll stay tuned on what the board decides, and then it sounds like the real factor is what do we do as a state? Because we've seen Colorado and other states actually, open it up to where you can have much more freedom with how you use it. And then the final oversight is the federal government still has regulations and rules about marijuana. Schedule I drug, that's still in conflict with a lot of what's going on with the states. So there's still a lot of this story to be written, it sounds like.
Oh, tremendous chapters left to be written. Example, right now, the way the law is written, and I'm not an attorney, but I have a lot of attorneys tell me how the law is written, including our own attorneys. The federal restriction on marijuana, the monies derived from that sale, the sale, the growing, the handling, cannot be placed in a bank that's federally insured. Because you cannot place proceeds from a criminal activity under federal statutes in a federally insured bank. So it's basically a cash business. The state itself realizes this. Now, I had a meeting with an attorney that represents the Growers Association, and we were discussing this very fact. And apparently the state, through the BOE, Bureau of Equalization, is forming a state-run bank, if you will, in Sacramento, that the Growers Association can use those proceeds, can document sales, write checks, use credit cards, have accounts, and then that way we can have some type of accurate registration of just how much money is being made.
Gosh, fascinating stuff. Just have a few minutes left, but I wanted to hit on one more thing. The general plan has been a very long process, and it continues to be worked on. Just briefly, what's our timeline on actually getting a new general plan approved?
We discussed that issue today. I'm convinced the general plan is moving along very well. The process is intense with our planning commission. They're doing a great job with our planning department, our planning commissioner, planning director Peter Maurer, and they work well together. Now, there's issues with the community. I mean, there's always going to be issues. You have community plans, you got land use issues, things of that sort. Right now, I was informed that they're looking at maybe 1 to 2 months before they can put this general plan before the CEQA process and the EIR processes to bring it back for a board. And that's going to take a while. That's going to take a year plus. But it's not where we were 2 years ago. We're far leaps ahead of where we were. So I'm convinced that we're going to have this general plan hopefully in place by the time I seek re-election. And that's 3 years.
So is 2017 too soon then, or?
Depends how things go.
Okay.
I'd like to see it by 2017. That's what the people want.
Okay. All right. Any last words for your constituents, your community members up in District 3?
All I got to say, folks, is we've turned the corner. Let's keep up the pace. Let's bring commerce back in here. Let's take care of our communities. Let's take care of our youth. One of the problems I'm working on is getting people to stay in this county. And I'm working that with the Economic Development Committee, some private committees out of Murphy's, to get a tech training system and something for our kids. We can start them in the 5th grade and all the way through high school so they have a jump on life. So, all right. I'll tell you about that next show.
Okay. Supervisor, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Joel.
And thank you for joining me on this edition of Inside View. I'm your host, Joel Metzger, and I hope you join me next time.